All right. So I'm coming to you guys live from my home where the internet service can sometimes be a tad bit spotty. So if it starts chopping up really bad, just let me know. I should be able to see that as I record. Anyway, um, what I want to talk about today is just kind of an expansion on the idea of the eco narrative. Now, last time we talked about the difference between place, land, and landscape, right? And for the most part, I introduced an idea where we could go to a place and start taking notes about our experiences, start putting down some creative groundwork for the types of work that we could use to really bring the descriptions of that place to life. Now, when we're appealing to the senses, we want to be very, very aware of the words that we're using to make that place come alive. But there is kind of an interesting alternative to actually going to a place in the real world, or as some more nerdy people might call it, meat space. Video games make for some very interesting experimentation when it comes to experiencing land versus landscape. Most of the time, when you sit down and you play a video game, you are experiencing an environment of some type, right? You're mostly getting the appeal to your sight and your sound. Maybe if you get controller feedback or something like that, there could be a little bit of touch. But for the most part, those are the two senses that you're dealing with. But the reason I like to bring this up with this assignment is because in regard to the idea of eco-narrative, there's a very interesting bridge between video games and eco-narrative. There is a very, very popular game mechanic out right now, and I believe it's called procedural environment algorithms. I'm probably getting that wrong. Please don't make fun. Please, I was going to say don't make fun of me, but yeah, you can make fun of me. Just don't hate me for screwing that up. But a lot of games generate environment based upon a randomized algorithm. Every time you play it, your experience is going to fundamentally be different depending upon the function of the game. This is not exactly the most new thing. I remember when I was in high school, I played this game called Diablo. Some of you guys may have heard of it. Every time you went down into the dungeon would always be different, right? There were always similar treasures to find, similar enemies to fight, but you never knew exactly what the floor was going to look like when you stepped onto it. There are a lot of games that pull that kind of trick. Minecraft was not the first game to do this, but Minecraft popularized this in a way that has kicked it into overdrive. Minecraft, when you create a new world in Minecraft, you are engaging with a procedural algorithm that generates what is seemingly an infinite world. No two worlds are going to be alike unless you're using a seed. And the seeds, you can get seeds from all sorts of different places, and they're worlds that people have explored, right? But the seeds aren't the really exciting part. The exciting part is when you generate a completely new world that needs to be mapped out. Think about that for a minute. You have created a world that is essentially infinite. Well, not infinite, but has, enough of it to explore that it feels that way. And no one else has ever seen your version of this world. That is a very, very close approximation to what it feels like to experience land. That is really, really interesting from a philosophical standpoint. Minecraft scratches an explorative itch for us. We get a whole new place. And the only thing that defines that place is our relationship to it. In fact, the game itself builds the world as you explore. As you enter a new area, what's called a chunk, the parameters of the world are drawn around you. It exists only because you have explored it. You can get a lot of mileage out of playing Minecraft and taking notes as to what you see and what you do with it. Because Minecraft is also a game where you knock things down, you convert it to its constituent parts, and you build new things. It's a world where you are interacting with your environment and changing it. That is a really cool way of looking at land versus landscape. One of the first things you have to do in a survival game of Minecraft is build a shelter and start gather materials, chopping down trees, killing animals, all this stuff so that you can survive. You are changing the history of that land as you interact with it. Me personally, when I play it, and you probably already guessed, I am a big Minecraft fan. I love Minecraft. If I was like stranded on a deserted island somewhere and I had to pick one game that I could bring with me, it would be Minecraft because I never ever get tired of it. But I build things, I name locations, I draw boundaries, and I come up with stories to all these things that exist in this world that are generated by this algorithm. As the game has changed, they've also added in all sorts of stuff like villagers, landmarks that are ruins, treasures that can be found, enemies that can be summoned, different realms to enter, biomes, animals. It's honestly really incredible because you feel like an explorer as you play it, and it has a great deal of depth. Again, I don't want the whole video to just be about video games, but very likely this is going to end up being about video games, and that's okay because I'm the teacher and I can do whatever I want. What you gonna do about it? I've gotten into some, not arguments, but debates with people who don't like Minecraft. And I'm not one of those guys who's like, I like Minecraft. But Minecraft is a completely different kind of game, depending on what kind of games you like to play. Minecraft is a game where it's more about exploration, doing things in what they call a sandbox environment. For a lot of people, playing a game means more accomplishing goals, telling a story, or trying to accomplish a score, beat that score. For a lot of people, games are about competitiveness. You can turn Minecraft into that. But for me, Minecraft is pure exploration and creativity. It engages those sides of myself. So for me, part of the reason I enjoy it so much is because it avoids some of those more, cliche gamey kind of things. It's a sandbox. Minecraft is not the only game that you could use for this purpose, and you don't have to even do a procedural algorithm with it either. Just to give you some examples, Terraria is really good about this. Terraria is a lot more gamey in the fact that there's more of there's a lot more goals to accomplish and has kind of like a Legend of Zelda feel to it, but it does have that kind of procedural algorithm thing going on with it. Terraria has an Ark Survival, has something like that. Pixark is really cool. Pixark has it's like Minecraft with dinosaurs. There's all sorts of stuff out there that you could theoretically just try out, play, write about your experience. And it doesn't have to be a brand new experience either. To go into more classic gaming topics, think about the experience of Super Mario Brothers, like the very first one from years and years and years and years ago. That first world, level 1-1. Think of the colors that you see. Think of the sounds. You ever just stop and think about something as simple as Mario and how bizarre it is and how weird it is? Like, if you wanted to, you could bridge between the experience of Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, and Super Mario Brothers 3, and just write about the experience of those three games and do something very similar to an eco-narrative type setup. Dark Souls. If you like to hurt, Dark Souls is a really good way to engage with a kind of eco-narrative kind of setup. I'm kind of a Nintendo fanboy myself, so I always trend towards the Nintendo side of things. But we could do, again, I'm just kind of listing stuff off my head. Resident Evil has a very atmospheric thing that you could kind of engage with. All of this stuff would work very well for a kind of eco-narrative type of writing, whereas it becomes more about the experience of the game itself and, trying to bring that experience to life. So for my gamers out there, or anyone, what's some of the most entertaining stuff I've found? Let's say you're not a gamer. Let's say you're not someone who really engages with that very much. Downloading a stupid, weird free game on your phone and writing about the experience of that free game could actually be really interesting too. Just to take this to the most abstract places. Imagine Tetris. My wife is currently playing a crossword puzzle game that is strange because it has most of its clues and most of its vocabulary in more British English. So we keep having to look up vocabulary words that we've never even heard of before in order to complete this crossword puzzle. I've kind of helped her out a couple of times, and I've been stumped more often than not because I have no idea what a footy is, or I can't think of any British slang right now. But all this stuff could go into the creation of the eco-narrative. Now, I'm going to hold off on the grammar thing for this week because I just really want to take things slow for a bit. What I'm going to do for this video, I'm going to give you some links to some YouTube videos of live stream YouTubers. I love these guys because what they do is in their raw live stream content, they end up giving us some pretty eco-narrative type stuff as they enter into a virtual world and talk about their experience with it. One of my favorite streamers of this style is called the Yogscast. They do a lot of stuff like this. They have a very old video I'll share with you called "It's Minecraft Surviving the First Night." It's supposed to be a guide on how to survive the first night, and it ends up just absolutely terrible. It's very, very entertaining. This type of stuff is, I was one of the first people to, look, this is going to sound a little hipstery, but I was one of the first people I ever knew who really got into the Let's Play and, live streaming games movement. That was a long time ago, around the first time I first started teaching. And I had that kind of weird adult shift where all of a sudden you're just not hanging out with friends anymore. And these live streaming gamers were kind of like supplementing my lack of friendships. And so when everybody started talking about live streamers like PewDiePie or Uberhacks or Nova, I remember thinking to myself, like, you guys are just now figuring this out. These live streamers might give you some ideas because for an eco-narrative, if you'll remember, I said an eco-narrative doesn't necessarily have to have so much of the so what. It doesn't have to have the purpose very front in its head. It can just sort of be a catalog of the experience, right? So you don't necessarily have to tell me why the eco-narrative is why it's important to you. You could just write about the experience. A lot of these streamers, one of the things that they excel at is always running their mouths. One of my favorite live streamers goes by the name Sips. And part of the reason I love Sips so much is as he plays a video game, I swear to God, this man never shuts up as he plays. And he's always yakking away. And a good portion of the things that he's saying for the filler is pretty dadgum entertaining. But he's never shy about just rambling, just filling that dead air during his stream, which in my opinion makes him one of the most fun YouTubers to watch because you don't necessarily have to pay 100% attention to him. And he actually coined a term for this. He calls it Lego talk. For Sips, Lego talk is when you were little kids and you'd have a friend come over to play and you're playing with Legos. You're actually focusing most of your attention on Legos. And as you're playing with Legos, you feel like you need to talk to your friend. And so you just talk about inane stuff, just like dumb things that a conversation you only have to be halfway dialed into. I've wanted to write a paper about Lego talk. It's simply one of the most interesting things because we all engage in it occasionally. And what I would encourage you guys to do, some of you guys are going to kind of struggle with the whole creativity thing because you probably just going to want to get in and get out as quickly as possible. Think about engaging with some of the Lego talk. As you're talking about your eco narrative, feel free to insert weird opinions, strange observations that don't necessarily go anywhere. That's the nature of a first draft. And it can be good for your writing to engage with more of the stuff that doesn't necessarily have to flower into something absolutely poignant and amazing. Sips's Lego talk has been extremely lucrative for him because a lot of times jokes come out of thin air and become t-shirts later. It's an amazing effect. So for the video game aspect and for the eco narrative aspect, I would encourage you to open your mind up to some of the randomness, to write things that don't necessarily even make sense at first. Play with it, enjoy it. Writing should, and this is something that we don't really teach very often. Writing really should be something you enjoy. For most of you, I would say that that's probably something that will never happen for you because I don't want to be. A lot of people just don't find the act itself enjoyable. It has nothing to do with, your ability or anything like that. And a lot of those people can be incredibly proficient writers. But there's a real joy to finding something to write about that you enjoy writing about and you engage with just for yourself. When you can let go of the idea that this has to be good, it can just be what it is. And I can come back and try to build something better from it later if I want, but I can write for the sheer enjoyment for the writing itself. As someone who considers themselves a quote unquote writer, that's something that I struggle with sometimes. I have to push myself to write, but I find myself more and more experiencing that raw joy of writing something. So as far as going into this eco narrative thing, I hope that you guys open your minds to that a little bit. If you go with the video game aspect of it, I hope that might bring you somewhere where you can make a joke that only you would laugh at and you enjoy putting it out there for the sheer beautiful idea of creating it. I'm a big hippie today. So next week, we'll start with a little bit of some grammar stuff that I'll inject into this, that when we go back, we can revise it. But for right now, as you're going into the discussion forum and you're talking about your ideas, try to have fun. Try. I know. Most of you guys are like, I want to get this done as quickly as possible. You know what? Honestly, I respect it. That's the way most people treat this type of thing. But try to keep an open mind. Try to think about, where can we potentially mine out some enjoyment from this? Because it's really great when you find it. It's so rare, but I would hope that everyone could have that experience once in their life and then go and do stuff that's actually more fun and enjoyable. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful day. I'm trying to fight the urge to go out and get Chinese food. I love Chinese food. I want it so bad, but my blood sugar's high and I'm like, no. I gotta eat eggs, man. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thank you. All right, that's one.